Hello and welcome back to another video. This time we're going to be talking about animations in World of Warcraft, and this isn't really spurred on by anything other than the fact that sometimes the game's quality of animations sort of, more spell effects actually, sort of annoy me. Now this is mainly based on the Hunter, because there are some classes which I think are fantastic in terms of their spell effects. I think a prime example would be the Paladin. When you're going around using your Judgments and your Templar's Verdict and your, what's the hammer thing you throw on the ground? And lightning comes out of it. That stuff looks awesome, really awesome. And I just feel great playing a Paladin. However, there are one or two classes that just don't visually look that fantastic, and the main one that I'm going to be talking about is the Hunter, because as you probably all know, it's been my main for years, it's very sort of near and dear to my heart, and I still love playing the Hunter, but I do think that it could be better. I really do. Now, in Warlords of Draenor, Blizzard have said that they're going to be cutting down on other people's spell effects, so if you're in a raid, you're going to be seeing your own spell effects sort of not amplified, but you're going to be seeing them far more than other people's. They're going to be toning down your allies' ones, essentially. Now, one reason for doing this is, of course, frame rate stuff. It's nice when, you get a higher frame rate because there's not lots of bullshit going on around you. It's also going to be very good for melee players, because sometimes in melee, there's just so much going on with spell effects that you're kind of lost within it. And then also, it's going to allow them to step up the quality of spell effects for your own character, because if they're removing other people's, which frankly you probably don't care about too much, if they remove them a little bit anyway and tone them down, then they're going to have a bit more of a, just more headroom to kind of work in your own personal ones. Now, just one thing before we move on, in PvP they're still going to be keeping everyone's spell effects there at full potency, because that's obviously extremely important. Because, you need to know if someone's casting a certain spell or has cast a spell in order to counter it. Anyway, Hunters, so let's go through some of the abilities. Serpent Sting does nothing. There's some green gloop on the enemy, that's about it. Arcane Shot, at least it's okay because there's a little bit of a different effect there. But let's just say, look at a BM Hunter. Kill Command, your biggest effect. Tiny red blob in the middle of your enemy, and your pet moves a bit. That's a shame. Cobra Shot at least kind of does okay because it's got a large projectile that it fires, but it still doesn't look good. Even Power Shot. Now, Power Shot is an ability that should look awesome, right? And do you know what it does? You just draw your bow back and hold it at sort of, full string length, whatever, for a second, and then fire off a slightly larger than normal bolt. That's it. It doesn't look that great. Some of our traps look okay, but overall, it's just a very unimpressive class to play, especially when you compare it to, for example, a Paladin or hell, even some warrior abilities look great, like Dragon's Breath, and Shockwave, and even Thunderclap when you have it glyphed so the things fall down. It just kind of looks subpar, and there are certainly other classes which suffer from this problem. I found that my Arcane Mage doesn't look that great. I think it's your main one, the thingy that builds up arcane charges. Look, because all their main abilities are prefixed by arcane, I mixed them up in terms of their names, but the one that builds up your arcane charges, it doesn't have a very impressive spell effect. At least the one that sort of blows all your charges at once looks kind of cool, and Arcane Missiles looks cool, but I think they should just start making some of our bread and butter spells look more interesting. Because, let's just go right back to the solid Paladin. Your Crusader Strike, nice big golden spell effect. Your Judgment, a thing comes down from the air and whacks your enemy. They're sort of your two big spells you'll be using all the time. Unfortunately, their hammer, the hammer they can use under 20% health, it looks really cool when you use it from range, but when you're up close, you can't really see the effect, which is sort of unfortunate. But still, what we do know is in Warlords of Draenor, they're going to have far more room to improve these spell effects. So, first I'll just talk about some general stuff, and then what I sort of, personally want for a Hunter in terms of, I suppose, a little personal wish list style thing. So, what are they doing? Well, for some classes, they're actually putting in really fantastic new spell effects for their new abilities. Some new abilities, some old ones. We saw a preview of it a while ago. I have no idea where the footage is, unfortunately, but I remember seeing it, and I remember, clipping it into one of my own videos. I think it was the WoW source that they did for PvP. Yeah, it may have been that. But anyway, some of those new spell effects looked absolutely fantastic. A complete cut above what we have at the minute. So that was definitely nice to see. So what should they do? Well, for every single class, they should just revamp the spell effects, make them more interesting. And another important thing that they are actually able to do currently is increase the spell effect density. There's actually a console command, which you can Google easily, that increases the density of your spell effects. So if you're a mage doing Blizzard, you can make it so that your Blizzard will result in, say, double or triple the amount of little droplets falling from the sky. Of course, that's got no effect on the damage, but it looks a damn good bit more impressive. And in general, I think that's something that they should be doing, at least maybe facilitating in a menu option for a lot of classes, because some people would really like that effect. They'd like it if their Warlock spell just had more stuff going on and falling from the sky. I think that would look great. So there's one thing. Now, another thing that I think World of Warcraft could improve on, and I'll get onto Hunters in a minute, is anything with a cast time. I think there are some cast time spells, like say aim shot, power shot, like those ones that are a long cast time but do a lot of damage. I think they should look a lot cooler than they currently do. There should be a far more visual representation of building up power, so perhaps when you're casting that, like, I think there's a fireball ability, which is pretty long. I haven't played a fire mage in so long, but whatever that is, right? Imagine if during the 2.5 or whatever second cast time, or maybe it's 3 seconds, whatever, you can see just like fire energy gathering in your hand a little bit more than what you can see at the minute. And there's a far more visual representation of that 2.5 seconds actually being you charging up a big ass ball of fire. I think that's something that they could communicate really well. And also, if you can see your spell effects building up, like, sort of, majorly over 2.5 seconds, when you finally throw it, it's going to feel a little bit more cooler, because you didn't just make that fireball appear out of nowhere. No, it actually sort of materialized in your hands. You saw your character make it, and then you saw your character throw it. That just seems far more visceral in my head and far more interesting. So certainly a thing that they should be doing, I think. Now, with all those main points covered, let's just sort of skip on down to the Hunter and what they should be doing for us. So, Serpent Sting. Well, Serpent Sting, I think it's okay for that one to be a little bit bland. You don't want Serpent Sting to be too good, let's be honest. Like, that would just be a little bit silly. Now, Kill Shot is an ability that could look a lot better. A lot better. And how would they do that? Well, Kill Shot, I think, is all about the impact. There needs to be that, that sort of blood-curdling sound that they have, they sometimes use in Warcraft. I think Kill Shot should make that sound, and there should be a far more noticeable explosion of blood or something like that. And if people are going to say, oh, but the game needs to be PG-13, nah, it doesn't. Like, look at Thok, it does, yes, but look at what they do with Thok the Bloodthirsty, with limbs and shit flying everywhere. They can get away with that with a PG-13 rating. So, yes, I think Kill Shot should have a better sound effect, and it should be far more squelchy in terms of what it looks like. And also, by the way, just spell effect-wise, or sound-wise even, most of the classes are pretty good in my opinion. I think Paladins, by the way, some of the best spell effects. Like, damn, Paladins sound so good. I know this video nearly sounds like me just sort of fanboying off on Paladins, but honestly, I just think that, kudos to Blizzard. Whoever is responsible for that has done a fantastic job. Anyway, back to the Hunters. So, Arcane Shot. Well, what they should do with Arcane Shot, in my opinion, is make its in-air effect perhaps a little bit cooler. Instead of it just being a blue bolt that flies around the place, give it a bit of a more sort of arcane-ish feel, like there's magic swirling around it, or something like that. Right now, it definitely looks like a 2005 spell effect. So, really, just a general sort of increase in fidelity for that would be cool. And once again, when your Arcane Shot hits the enemy, you see this like tiny little arcane blast, tiny little thing, tiny. Make that bigger. Just make it bigger. Same with the one for Arcane Mages. Make it actually noticeable. Because if you can't notice a spell effect, it doesn't matter if it's there or not. You won't notice it. So, for other things, Kill Command. Once again, Kill Command I think should have a slightly more beefy sound effect, but also visually, maybe if you're doing it from range, your pet should just, like, I don't know, they could definitely do something to your pet. I know it already, just sort of blinks behind your target, but they could do something cool there. Maybe a spell effect that's slightly akin to Dragon's Roar in a way. That's a warrior talent where a big dragon's head appears when you use it. Maybe one of those could appear over your pet. Not exactly a dragon, but that style of thing. Just something that's very, well, noticeable. because here's the thing about Kill Command, it's our biggest, like, one of our biggest shots, or not shot, biggest, abilities, and it just doesn't feel that great. It doesn't feel good at all, so that could definitely be fixed. As for Cobra Shot, overall I think Cobra Shot is looking pretty decent, though they could definitely just make the actual projectile look better, because I don't think it looks too fantastic at the minute. And they could also accompany Cobra Shot with a better sound. Because right now, a lot of our shots just make the kind of generic you fire an arrow sound. I don't think that's too good. There needs to be variation between shots, or at least more, and very distinct variation. So that's important. Now, Power Shot. Look, Power Shot, boring as shit. You just stand there, you hold your bow back, and then an oversized arrow flies out pretty quickly. Now, the oversized arrow does look cool, the knockback does look cool, but maybe there should be something to symbolize you building up power there. Just, that sort of effect they often do in things where there's a whole bunch of just, like, lines or something coming out around. Like something to symbolize energy going into your bow. Some sort of cool spell effect to actually symbolize you really pulling the tension on those bowstrings, or just something in and around there to symbolize the build-up and power of your weapon before you actually unleash this giant arrow. And because it's really important that players feel that when they use an ability like this, and I think that World of Warcraft should, in terms of spells, be at the stage where they will feel great without any combat text. I definitely think the combat text helps your spells feel better, because when you get a giant crit and, the big yellow writing comes up, you think, oh yeah, I just fucking knocked it out of the park. Okay, I didn't do anything, but hey, I got the crit, and it felt great. That does feel good, but that feels very 2005-ish. I think that your spells should feel fantastic without any combat text. Now, that's not me advocating for removing combat text. No, I will keep my numbers. I love numbers. But I just mean in terms of they should get spells to be so good that combat text is only an informational thing and is not needed to actually make your spells feel better. At least they feel better for me. Now, multi-shot doesn't feel too good. Not 100% sure what they could do with that, but hey, they could do something. And, yeah, the traps, look, the traps feel fine. Maybe a little bit of a just general increase in detail for them would be nice. But overall, that's my main thoughts on the Hunter. They could just make everything better. A lot better. And Hunter is definitely the class which I think is perhaps the weakest in this regard, unfortunately. So that's why I bring it up, and then also because I sort of play it. Really, I think that ultimately what they need to remember is that in a game, to make something feel visceral and fun, what needs to happen is your input needs to be matched with the game outputting something that feels amazing. So think of a game that you've played in the past that's been really visceral, that's had really meaty combat. Hell, I even remember Call of Duty World at War, right? It sometimes felt visceral because when you shot your friend in the arm, you blew his bloody arm off. That felt pretty cool. And it felt meaty because there was a very meaty sound effect down there as well. Sometimes in Smite. Now, Smite does not, in terms of spell effects, isn't fantastic. Some are great, some are mediocre, but when you kill something with Poseidon's ultimate, which makes a kraken appear from the floor, it feels great. And some of, Wildstar's spell effects do look really cool, and not really because of the crazy spell effects, but there's just something about the overall aesthetic of that game and the way they've pulled off some spell effects that looks pretty nice. And the thing is, we know Blizzard can do this. Diablo 3 spells feel so good, and maybe not all of them are extremely flashy, but the way that the spells interact with your enemies, when you hit a button on your warrior and then you just see one of your enemies get sliced in two and thrown across the map, or you hear one of those really meaty spell effects or something like that, it feels fantastic. So maybe some of the people involved with that could just, Blizzard, get one of those teams that are involved with some of the visual design, or not design, just visual spell effects for Diablo. Just get them to take a look at World of Warcraft for a week. Get them to draft up a report. Get them to do something. Or maybe just get the Warcraft designers to take a little bit of a break on it. Because, or not break, break from what they're doing and take a look at this. And the reason I'd say that is because, look, the graphics and art department are probably doing quite well at the minute for Warlords of Draenor. The way game development usually works is that the art team is done first. And then stuff kind of gets shipped off to the programmers and That's our main game designers, and the art team are usually working on ahead on projects. An example of this would be, say, the latest games from Double Fine Studios. They actually kickstarted a game before Broken Age came out because their art department was sitting around with nothing to do because they'd already done all the art for Broken Age. So if you have any artists that are just, or effects artists or whatever, that are just ready to go, maybe they could sort of stop and think, okay, let's just do a design pass on a few characters, or a few classes, as just a base, and try to improve them. And now they have been making progress recently. Glyphs have helped, some of the new 5.4 glyphs look really cool, and the legendary cloak procs look cool. I know the multi-strike style thingy that happens for at least range characters on the cloak looks really cool. And overall, they're going in the right direction. I just think, look, I had some feelings about the Hunter, so I made a video about it. And that's what this is, and you've made it this far, so hurrah. Anyway, so hopefully, the bottom line is that Warlords of Draenor should fix some of this stuff. And they are going to be putting in new spell effects, I'd imagine, for quite a lot of things. The level 100 talents will have new effects, and just the way they're rejigging everything, it gives them an opportunity. And they haven't announced a great deal of it yet, but that's fine, because I'm sure they'll announce it in the future. Anyway, hopefully the future is kind of bright-ish, or not bright, let's just hope the future is full of spell effects and glitter. Lots of glitter. Anyway, that's it for the video. Let me know what you think about spell effects. What class do you, not what class do you play, but do you play any classes which you feel could do better in terms of their spell effects? So are there any particular spells that you think are either fantastic or not particularly good? I'd love to hear what they are. Because it's interesting, and I know that at the end of videos I often do ask for people to, leave their opinion in something. A lot of that is because I don't have time to play every class, and I find it really interesting to know, and it does kind of inform me when I make other videos and things. Anyway, that's it for the video. Time to actually finally close it off. Thank you for watching, and I will see you next time.